We'll dive into that album in a second. I have some
Yeah.
kind words sent in from a dear friend of yours. This is Juno Award winner Colin Linden from Blackie and the Rodeo Kings,
Oh
amongst
yeah,
other
yeah.
projects.
Yeah.
Colin says, Glenn plays with such passion and joy. We played together quite often many years ago, and that fire, spirit, and soul that he had then as a musician and a human is still evident when I hear Blue Rodeo now. Glenn had a sense of freedom in his playing that I used to love when I heard him with White Noise almost 40 years ago. And I think that that continues to inform and inspire the music he plays today. Also, more simply, Glenn has the chops of a great jazz player, but plays roots music with the soul and respect of someone who really loves it. A great musician. Please send him my love, from Colin.
Oh, that's wow, that's super sweet of Colin. That's really nice. Yeah, I used to substitute for Gary Craig, who was the drummer. Still plays with Colin. Gary Craig is a great Toronto drummer. Played with Anne Murray years ago. Then he played with Colin Linden, and he's been the drummer for Blackie and the Rodeo Kings since the very beginning. He plays with Jan Arden, and he was actually playing with Colin. I had to learn Gary Craig's drum parts, and that was actually I would say that learning Gary's parts was an important part of my education, because Gary he's a very different drummer from me. He played with a lot of economy, and I mean, he has a lot of chops, but Gary has always worked really steadily, and singer-songwriters love him because he plays. First of all, he has a beautiful pocket. He has great time, and but he plays exactly what the song needs. And listening to his drumming and learning his drum parts helped me learn about how to play a song and how your drum part should develop with the song. Like he would do things. I would notice things like, oh, in the first verse, he doesn't play a fill, but then he plays a fill in the second verse, but it's like a short fill. But then in the third verse, he plays a fill in the same spot, but it's a longer fill, and I sort of see how he would, tell a story, through his drumming, how the kind of his drumming would be kind of a plot line that developed, just like you would hear in the arrangement of the song. And so learning his parts and playing with Colin kind of taught me that about the value of economy and of how letting your parts develop through a song, so you're not just like, here it is, like right at the song, here's everything in the kitchen sink, look what I can do, which is, was kind of more my instinct when I was younger. So yeah, that was a great education. And I'm actually, I was trying to make a list of people I played with, and Colin was someone who I forgot, because I played with so many people over the years. It's really hard to remember everybody, but Colin was a very important artist who I got to play with in the late 80s, and who was an important part of my development. So that's nice you mentioned him.
So your first album with Blue Rodeo, Lost Together, comes out in 1992. That goes double platinum. Mm-hmm. Then your second album in 1993 is 5 Days in July, goes 6 times platinum. That's the band's best selling and probably most iconic album. So I'd say that's not a bad start with your new band. And I had a question about, sometimes when a band member joins a band, or the new band member, they can get relegated to the background. But when I listened to that album, Lost Together, it looked like the band was actually showcasing you. I'll just, on a few songs here. So Restless, The Big Push, Will and Fool, Flying, Where Are You Now, and Angels, to me, seems like they're actually showcasing you as like the new secret weapon that they have. Do you agree that you kind of had a spotlight on your first album? And what did it mean to you, if you agree, that they had such confidence in you as the newest member and not just an afterthought, barely keeping time in the background?
Right. Well, I don't think there was anything where they were intentionally showcasing me. I think some of that was, when I joined the band, like I say, I was kind of a more aggressive player, and more aggressive, and maybe sort of had busier parts. And also those songs had a lot of spots that stretched out, where I could sort of do my thing. So I think it was just a byproduct of how the songs were and how I was as a player at the time. And subsequent after that, there was a lot more of, okay, we need to rein this in here, especially after doing 5 days, where the drumming is entirely understated. There's no sticks on that record at all. It's all brushes. There's songs on that record where I'm just playing brushes on a suitcase, like that's the drum part, So we kind of went in the opposite direction after Lost Together. But I think it was just where the band was at and where I was at. And I think at first they were kind of like, oh, we got this new drummer that can do all this stuff. So yeah, let him do it, And then I think it was after that they kind of went like, oh, we don't really need all that stuff, because they truly didn't. It wasn't necessarily, some of those elements that, like say on Willing Fool or something, it still happens. I still have parts where I can, show off a bit on the drums, or there's songs with more fills, but it's also less of a concern of mine than say it was in the early 90s. There was a part of me in the early 90s, and really, for a while, it was still like wanting to put myself forward and kind of using any opportunity to show off a little, whereas after that, as I've matured as a player, it's a lot more about like, what does the song need, as opposed to how many notes can I squeeze in here, So I think, if the drums seem more forward or showcased on that record, it's really just because of that's where we were at that period of time, and then we kind of went to other places,
So the album's Lost Together and 5 Days in July. They kick off a run of 12 consecutive albums that are certified gold, platinum, or multi-platinum. That might be one of the best runs in Canadian music history. The album was nominated for a Juno Award, Album of the Year. So not just any nomination, but that's the most prestigious as a band, I would think. What does that first Juno nomination mean to you? I mean, there's 30 some nominations, along the way, but that first one for you, did that mean something special?
Well, I got to be honest. I think, I wonder if that was the one. I don't think that was one where we won Group of the Year. No, it wasn't. That was a little later. I can't even remember if did we win Album of the Year for Lost Together? We didn't win it.
So Lost Together, you were nominated, and then maybe the next album is the big one. So I'm not.
I don't think we won Album of the Year. My first Juno with Rodeo was actually Group of the Year. I have it up here, and I remember I've always been kind of a little ashamed because when we won, I should backtrack a bit. Like, to be honest, awards have never meant that much to me. I'm happy to get them. They were already winning awards when I joined, so I never felt like, yay, I earned this. I was just kind of like, I jumped on this bandwagon, and along with it comes award shows. And what the Junos meant to me was an opportunity to play the Junos. So the year that we got nominated for Lost Together, I don't even remember the nomination, to be honest. What I remember is playing the Junos and hanging out backstage and meeting all these other musicians, and I remember that year we played a tribute to Ian and Sylvia, where we played a medley of Ian and Sylvia songs with like Jane Siberry and all these other sort of guest artists. And at the time, I didn't really even know. I'd never even heard Four Strong Winds before. Like, I was from such a different place musically. I didn't even really know any Ian and Sylvia songs, so I just had to do that. So what I remember is doing the performance and being backstage with all my, musical buds. And I remember hanging out with the Barenaked Ladies, because Tyler, the drummer for the Barenaked Ladies, used to be my next door neighbor, so we were pals.
Hold on. What's with all your neighbors being drummers?
Well, in those days,
that was your original inspiration, and then
well, yeah, Well, in those days in Toronto, like, you know, all the musicians lived downtown. Like now that doesn't happen anymore because downtown's too expensive, and all the musicians are in like Hamilton or, you know, they're spread out. There's fewer musicians living in the city than there used to be because it's just less affordable. But everybody lived downtown, and you know, like, you know, I remember I had a house on Bathurst Street, and next door there was Ian Blurton from Change of Heart and Bernard, the keyboard player from Change of Heart, and Mike Belitsky lived nearby, who became the drummer for the Sadies, and I remember Andrew Scott from the Sloan coming over to my house to jam. Actually gave him a drum lesson, and you know, and yeah, Tyler Stewart lived next door. Like, so there's always musicians around. So. But yeah, the Junos to me, it was more about. It's always been about being at the ceremony and playing and hang and the parties afterwards, and that's always. And the rewards are nice, but not something I take too seriously. I'm way more concerned with playing good shows, making good records, and enduring, you know, and all that's like now we don't get nominated for Junos anymore. Like, and that is 100% fine with me because we got lots of nominations. We won quite a few, and which is nice. You know, let's see if you can. Yeah, there they are. I got a bunch of them up there.
Oh, wow.
in the middle thing. You know, there's what do we got up there? There's Canada's Walk of Fame. There's the Governor General's Award for the Performing Arts. There's Canadian Music Hall of Fame, and then but some of them are like DVD of the year. You know, that's like obsolete. You know, it's like I got an award for you know, a medium that is now completely obsolete. You know, so the rewards are nice, but it's not. You know, eventually they're history, and what matters now is what really matters is like I'm still doing this. Like, you know, is what matters is what's happening right now today, and am I making music, and is more music coming? You know, that's all I've really cared about. So it was fun to be part of the rewards, but to be part of the ceremonies, it's always fun to be part of those things. But I have a lot of Blue Rodeo sales awards. None of them are on my walls because first of all, they're ugly. And second of all, it's just kind of not what's really important to me. If I was going to have something on my walls, it might be more of like a poster of a memorable show or something like that. That's kind of more important to me. And I'm not downplaying. I'm not saying I don't appreciate those awards and things like that, but they just don't hold an important place in my heart, like the actual memories of actually playing and you know, my memories of my experiences with my fellow musicians are what is truly dear to me.
I saw Sting once go up to accept an award, and he said music is its own reward, which was basically what you're saying. You know, you appreciate the awards, but it's not about that. It's about the relationship with the other band members. It's about being the best musician you can be. It's about creating timeless music. As an entrepreneur, hearing your answer, I feel like there's an opportunity here where I could start a company that designs beautiful plaques for awards that might be worth putting up. So
yeah, well, a lot of that, the ugly part, is because most of my awards came during the CD era. So you got all these like framed CDs, you know, it's just not
these plastic.
Yeah, they're not. It's not beautiful. The when you actually had like gold and platinum records, those were kind of cooler, you know. But yeah, CDs, you know, framed CDs are not necessarily something you want to have all over your walls. And like I say, it's just not the most important thing to me. You know, it just isn't.
The last thing I'll say about the Junos is what's funny is on Twitter. So I was promoting this episode. I was getting questions from the fans, and someone corrected me. So I put Blue Rodeo's won an unprecedented 12 Juno awards, and someone from a major Toronto newspaper, it was either like the Toronto Sun or the Globe and Mail. This is like a legit writer. He goes, actually, I'm pretty sure it is precedented. And then I had to go check, and it's true that like Celine Dion and Shania Twain and the Tragically Hip, even though winning 12 and being nominated for 30 plus is like you're in the top 10 of all time, it is precedented. So I got corrected by someone. Anyways, I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, it's hard to be first. To kind of always be in first place with things.
Well, as long as you're not last, I suppose. So going back into the first album, and then we'll move on to the next one. So obviously the album Lost Together had the song Lost Together, which is one of Blue Rodeo's signature songs. Do you remember the first time you guys started working on what would become that song? Do you have any memories of that song kind of coming to fruition, and if you had any idea that could become a massive hit?
Well, to be honest, I don't remember actually rehearsing that song. I remember recording it. I remember being in the studio, and I remember Jim saying to Greg, because the previous album, Casino, I think all the hits were Jim's. I'm trying to think. Oh, Greg had What Am I Doing Here? What Am I Doing Here was the big song for Greg from Casino. But Jim had Till I Am Myself. He had After the Rain. Those are the two big ones for him on Casino. I can't remember if there was another. But so Jim kind of had the more radio play. And I remember him saying to Greg about Lost Together, he's like, we got a hit for you this one, buddy. Like Jim knew that it was going to be big. He knew that it was a hit song. I did not know that. I was not. I can't say I've ever predicted. Like, I'd say there's an odd time where I thought, like, okay, like when years later when we recorded the song Bulletproof for a record Palace of Gold that came out in 2002. I remember thinking, that's a hit song. Like, that's a beautiful song. Still one of my favorite Jim songs. Like, it was just such a beautifully crafted song. I just thought there's no way that this song isn't going to do well. But I can't say I was listening to that. I thought Lost Together was going to be massive, but I knew it was going to do well. I mean, the thing is, at that point, I remember thinking this band could release an album of fart sounds and it would sell 100,000 copies, which was true at the time. And, so it was kind of, I kind of had the smug satisfaction of being in a band like that. But I didn't predict that it was going to be a hit. I remember working on the song in the studio. I remember Greg describing the drum fills he wanted that are sort of in the intro, when it's strange and beautiful are the stars tonight, the dance around your head, do, the kind of Ringo fills, like they're like the drum fills in A Day in the Life. But he also played me this record called Dillard and Clark. Dillard and Clark was this guy, Doug Dillard, and who I believe was in like a country band called the Dillards, or like an early sort of country rock band called the Dillards. And Gene Clark was a member of the Byrds. So these guys came together and they made this classic early country rock record, like 1968. And the opening song on that, I think, was called Out on the Side. And it had drum fills in it that he played for me. And he's like, I want you to do drum fills like this for Lost Together, So that was kind of the template for that part of the song. And then and then I just remember recording the song at Manta. I remember shooting the video, and which was, I think that was the first video we shot, and that was kind of a big deal. That was back in the days when you spent $100,000 on videos, 50 or $100,000 on videos.
The good old days.
Yeah, they don't even spend that much on making records anymore, like, never mind videos. But, that's when there were there was more income, you know, coming in from records. So yeah, so yeah, I remember that, and then I remember, you know, the single doing really well, and being very happy about that. But I, at the time, because the band had been so successful, I was confident that all that was going to happen, you know, and it did, you know. The later the success of 5 days was something that took me by surprise, and that I could not have predicted. That I did not predict. I thought that was just more of a transition record. Like, we're going to do this. It was initially just going to be an EP. It was, and so we were going to do this acoustic EP. We're just going to throw it out, and then we're going to do another. What to me was a proper rock record where I could use sticks again and do my thing, you know, like. So yeah, but yeah, Lost Together was, you know, and I also would not have known that that song was going to be as enduring as it has been. I mean, it's still, we close with it every night, and it's safe to say we will do that for the rest of our career. That every Blue Rodeo concert from now till we stop is going to end with Lost Together, and I could not have predicted that it was going to be such an enduring song.
So I have a fan question here, if you have a short answer for him. So this is from Jeffrey Stone, who's a great singer-songwriter here in Ottawa. He says, I'm always interested in the origin story of band names and how they come up with them. Curious how Blue Rodeo got their name.
Well, I wasn't there. So
any guesses or any fabricated stories you could share? You could make one up right now.
They've told me about it, and I think it was just it was I believe Greg came up with the name, and I think it was just coming up with 2 words to describe the band's sound. The blue being, you know, at the time they had their ballads like Try, and you know, those songs were already written when the band was formed. Like when they formed the band, they already had Rose-Colored Glasses. They had Try. They had, you know, they had a bunch of tunes. So they already had an idea of what their band was going to sound like. And they knew, you know, and Jim, they knew that, so they were going to have ballads, but they were also going to have these rollicking kind of country flavored songs. And that, the roots thing came from, so Jim and Greg, I'm going to go back a bit with Jim and Greg. Jim and Greg's first band was called the Hi-Fives. And that was a band that existed in the mid-late 70s. I would say late 70s. And that was very influenced by Elvis Costello in particular, and the Beatles. And so it was kind of power pop, new wave sounding stuff. Then they moved to New York, where they then changed the band name to Fly to France. And they continued to play some of the material they had. Like there's actually online, you can find a video of Fly to France playing an early version of Rose-Colored Glasses. And it's Jim and Greg with these 2 New York guys as a rhythm section. And it's like a much faster version of Rose-Colored Glasses. It's like a new wave version of Rose-Colored Glasses. But while they were in New York, and they started to pine for the Canadian thing, and Greg was listening to a lot of Gordon Lightfoot. And he was like, let's go back to Canada and start a new band that is sort of more Canadian in flavor, and let's embrace our Canadian roots. And when they went back to Toronto, there was this guy named Handsome Ned, who was very big on the scene in Toronto at the time. And Handsome Ned was essentially a country artist, a country and rockabilly guy. And he had a band called Handsome Ned, and then another band called the Sidewinders. And he was a great singer. He was very charismatic. And Jim and Greg loved this guy and got really influenced by him. And so they were kind of like, okay, this is the direction of the band. We're going to do this kind of rockabilly, country meets new wave thing. And so that's kind of where the rodeo things come from. So Blue Rodeo is essentially, I'm sorry, this was supposed to be a short answer.
That's all good. That's all
I
good.
don't have any short answers. So it's blue being the combination of the sort of ballads, and rodeo being the kind of rollicking country influence side of their music. You put it together, Blue Rodeo, and that's kind of the origin of the band.
Can we get the long answer now?
You're only getting long answers out of me. I've had a lot of coffee.
Oh, it's all good. You're all jacked up on caffeine. I have some kind words sent in from Jake Boyd, who's the drummer for the rock band Hollerado.
Yeah,
Jake. So he's a great dude. I just saw him the other day at a venue here in Ottawa. He says, I mean, he literally might actually be the best drummer in the country. That's not even me being nice. It just may in fact be true. Jake Boyd from Hollerado.
Oh, again, that's an entirely subjective thing, but a very sweet thing to say. And I don't think there's no such thing as the best drummer in the country. You know what I mean? Because or the best, there's such a thing as like the fastest runner in the country, but there's no such thing as the best drummer or the best guitar player. There's just your favorite, like whoever your favorite is.
Yeah.
And there are many, many drummers who are more technically accomplished, like literally thousands of drummers in Canada who could play circles around me, or, in terms of technique or whatever. But that's a lovely thing to say, and that's very kind of him. And, like I say, I'm the best Glenn Milchem out there. And he's the best Jake Boyd. Again, I could not touch Jake Boyd at being Jake Boyd.